Before he was me, he was a lonely boy. But it's never too late to feel Christmas joy. That's not gonna happen. Max, today we're gonna steal Christmas. Prepare to have your little dummy mind blown. The Grinch. This is PG.
And welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. The first week of November was a bust overall, but needless to say, November 9th is definitely a lot better. At least there are better movies this weekend than there were the previous weekend. Starting off with our first movie here, and that is Dr. Seuss's The Grinch from Illumination Entertainment. The first time they're taking a live-action film from the Dr. Seuss library in the past with How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Of course, we know the Jim Carrey one. They made it into an animated movie, and it's interesting. Now, I've covered this movie before in a previous Christmas in July video, so if you want to go check that out, there's the link in the corner. But if you want to hear my thoughts on this overall right now, I'm not even bothered with that, I'll be quick on it here. The Grinch, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, hatches a sneaky scheme with his trusted canine Max and his new pet reindeer Fred to ruin this year's Christmas when the residents of Whoville's plans to make their annual holiday 3 times bigger this year. And his plan is to steal all the Christmas gifts from the Whoville's houses, dressed as a fake Santa Claus, and while the Grinch plots his plan, Cindy Lou Who plans to seek out Santa Claus and thank him for helping her widowed mother, played by Rashida Jones, every Christmas. But little does she know she is trying to blow the Grinch's cover. And like I said, you know, the Grinch movie, the Dr. Seuss films in general have had a very mixed reception and not a lot of very good films. I think, honestly, the best one up to this point was Horton Hears a Who. And, you know, of course, we know the Grinch film is fine, but it has a lot of faults. The Cat in the Hat is shit, so is the Lorax. And, you also had an Illumination, too, who's made a lot of movies that have been kind of like, not the best, but not the worst either. I mean, they've made some films that, they've made a lot of movies that, bottom line is that they're not like Pixar or Disney overall. They don't make quality film one after another. They make films that are fine, but never up to that par that they should be at. And so yeah, there was a lot of concerns going into this movie, especially since I really didn't like the last film that they did with the Dr. Seuss library, but I won't say that my heart grew 3 sizes like the Grinch's does. It grew maybe about a 1.5, maybe 2 stars in general. I did enjoy the movie, but I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece by any means, or even it's a slightly better movie than the 2000 film was, and yet there are still things about the 2000 film I think are much better, which I'll touch on briefly here. You know, I'll start with the positives. The animation is bright and colorful. It does a good job of capturing the spirit of the Dr. Seuss stories. It certainly has improved nicely compared to the Lorax 6 years ago. I thought the voice work was good in general. I'll touch on this more as we get to the negatives here, but I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was fine and does have funny moments as the Grinch, but honestly, Jim Carrey, I think, really is the best Grinch we've had in a film, because he puts effort into that, and he's got to do it while he's wearing that getup and all that. And I'll get to Benedict Cumberbatch when I get to the negatives here, but there were pretty funny elements that I did like about the film. I thought the comedy overall was good for the most part, but there were definitely lows when the comedy was kind of weak. I mean, you have moments where, you know, they got to throw in the screaming goat because, you know, these movies are being made by people who don't understand the kids of today, but there are even some good, nice, effective, emotional moments in here. Moments that don't feel forced, like they were put in there because they had a purpose to be there, especially with the way that they add this element to the film at the end. You know, the movie ends where, you think the story ends with the Grinch, just coming into town. He gives back all the gifts, and everyone sings Fahu Forest, Lahu Doris. But no, not in this movie, no. He takes the gifts back, and yet he feels like he's still an outcast, and then Cindy Lou invites him over to their Christmas party, and so you've got this guy who literally just stole everybody's presents and their Christmas, and walking through your house and trying to figure out how the hell is he going to... The Grinch in this movie is basically kind of socially awkward, and that's really kind of his biggest problem with the film, and it does, also, I'll say that again for the negatives, but it does just enough to provide a satisfying film. It has padding, but it doesn't have the type of padding that the 2000 Grinch has. There's no moment where an entire segment in the middle could have easily been cut out. A 30-minute segment and would have added nothing to the story. They don't do that here. There's nothing about the padding in this that feels distracting or unnecessary. But it does bring into my negatives overall. I admit that the story itself is nothing special. It doesn't really add anything to it, except for the aforementioned last scene in the movie, which I thought was nicely done. I thought the music was kind of lackluster. You have Danny Elfman, which, you got Danny Elfman, one of the greatest composers of all time, and it feels like he's half-assing it here. It's just there, and I really don't like Tyler, the Creator's versions of the You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, which basically just sounds like a Cliff Notes version of the song rather than a new rendition of it. And like I said, Benedict Cumberbatch can be good, but there's also a lot of times where he's just trying way too hard to be kind of like Sheldon Cooper, like that American accent that he has to have in the Doctor Strange movies comes out in force here, and it just feels lifeless. Like it doesn't feel like he's putting his effort into it overall, and I think that's really the biggest flaw with that performance in general here. Like, I mean, it's a performance where it's fine, but at least Jim Carrey was trying, and considering that he had to do it in all that makeup, probably getting a lot of heat exhaustion from so many hours of in that, but the fact that he puts more effort into that than Benedict Cumberbatch does, that kind of bugged me the most about this movie. And I like Benedict Cumberbatch a lot, but yeah, Jim Carrey I think definitely was the better Grinch overall in terms of the performance. But honestly, with all my complaints, I do think this is still my favorite Dr. Seuss film adaptation that we've gotten so far. Mostly because it sticks to the source material for the most part. The new stuff they add in here isn't horrendously or offensively bad or insultingly bad like it was in the Lorax. It is a very flawed film, but there's still enough of the movie to recommend it overall. It's a nice, serviceable film, and after watching Nutcracker on the Four Realms the week before, I needed a better Christmas movie than that was. But yeah, definitely the Grinch is one you should check out. So let's go ahead and move on to the much better movies of the week easily. Let's go ahead and move on to our next film, which is Overlord.
Find out what's inside that church. What happens to those people? They have been given a purpose. That's weird. Add it to the list.
Overlord. Rated R. November 9.
Once again, a much better Paramount-released Cloverfield movie than the actual Cloverfield movie. I think we're up to 3 different films this year. Annihilation... Why do I keep saying it like that? Annihilation, A Quiet Place, and this. And this one has J.J. Abrams behind it as one of the producers of it. On the eve of D-Day, the 5th of June, 1944, several American paratroopers are dropped behind enemy lines to carry out a mission crucial to the invasion's success. Destroy a radio tower built in a little castle of an old French town that the Third Reich used for communications between Berlin and Normandy's Beecher's bunkers. Due to the intense enemy fire, the planes are shot down and most soldiers die in the landing or are killed by the Nazis' night patrols after they're taking land. However, a private named Ed Boyce survives to find Corporate Ford, a last-minute incorporation from Italy and a veteran expert in bombs and explosives, rogue sniper Tibet, war photographer Chase, and finally Private Dawson. After they watch the killing of their superior Sergeant Elson by a Nazi night patrol, Ford turns into the leader of the group as they try to get out of town with the tower in order to complete the mission. Try to get to the town with the tower in order to complete the mission. In a force close to the town, after arriving to it, they meet Chloe, a villager who assists the soldiers in helping her in her home and her elderly and her little brother Paul. But the mission gets complicated when, by accident, Boyce ends up in the Nazi radio tower only to find horrible secret experiments with human beings that could empower victory for Hitler and would change the fate of the world forever. With D-Day approaching, Boyce and the others begin to realize that there is much going on in this Nazi-occupied village than a simple military operation. They not only have to fight against soldiers to destroy the radio tower, but also against the results of the experiment to turn the entire place to ruins. All this before dawn, and Hitler gets his Third Reich of 1,000 years that he promised. Man, that was a lengthy synopsis. I mean, good lord, but. So like I said before, I mean, this is a movie that is not set in the Cloverfield universe, has nothing to do with the Cloverfield universe, but it's better than the Cloverfield movie we got this year. I mean, this movie is a hell of a good, fun ride. I really love the hell out of this movie. This is just such a fun movie to sit through. It was a blast. I mean, this thing is about as close to a Castle Wolfenstein movie than it could have easily done and will probably ever get. And it probably would have been one of the great video game movies ever made. That's how good this movie was. From a technical level, the visuals are amazing. For a small-budgeted film, this thing only cost $38 million, and they put a lot of effort into this overall. The gore and the violence is nicely well done, as well as looking very realistic. A lot of this film does. The cast overall is great. Jovan Edpo continues his rising career with a very good performance. You also got Pulu Asbæk, Wyatt Russell, Bokeem Woodbine, and John Magaro. Mostly character actors who are really giving it their all in these performances. The script by Billy Ray is nicely done, and the direction by Julius Avery is really good. The film does a good job of building the tension-filled moments throughout the film to the point where you are on the edge of your seat throughout the majority of the film all around, and you can never really pinpoint where the twists and turns are going to come from this. This is a great movie, man. It's a good, fun time overall. If you love B-movie style horror films with kind of an A-level quality to it, this is definitely the movie for you. This is what The Predator should have been, and that didn't do that, but this is definitely one you want to check out if you haven't seen it. Overlord is excellent. Excellent, excellent film. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is The Return of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This time, she is the girl in the spider's web.
From the director of Don't Breathe.
The writer of Lorber. Why did you have everyone but me?
What you see, what you hear, what you know.
You can't outrun your own shadow.
It's only the beginning.
Every single social leads back to one place.
Home.
I've imagined this moment for so long.
The Girl in the Spider's Web, a new Dragon Tattoo story.
I completely forgot this was directed by Fede Alvarez. Of course, it gave us Don't Breathe, just did Alien Romulus, so this should be good, right? Also did Evil Dead, and it is not quite as good as the other Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies, but good enough to recommend it. This time you have Claire Foy starring as Lisbeth Salander, who teams with journalist Mikael Blomkvist to find themselves caught in a web of spies, cybercriminals, and corrupt government officials. And I've already said how I felt about the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies. I love the original trilogy. I really love the David Fincher film, one of my favorite movies of 2011. So I was looking forward to this a lot. And this was actually one of those ones where I read the book beforehand, because I read the other Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books. So, unfortunately, the movie we got kind of ended up being an underwhelming disappointment, but there's still a lot of elements I did like about it. I think the casting overall is really good. You got Claire Foy playing Elizabeth Salander, who does a pretty good job filling the shoes of Rooney Mara. I mean, there are definitely times when she does outdo Mara in these scenes, and I thought she did a pretty good job overall in this. Lakeith Stanfield was really good in this, and I thought Stephen Merchant was really good too. The visual look of the film is incredible too. I mean, like I said, this is Fede Alvarez, and he does a great job of creating these unique cinematic shots in this movie with the help of the cinematographer Pedro Luque, who did a very good job with the shots in particular. And everything else overall, unfortunately, was kind of lackluster. The action sequences can look nice every once in a while, but nothing really wowed me. A lot of what I saw was cool, but I've seen these type of action sequences done better in other films. I mean, I think mostly the biggest problem with the film comes in the fact that it's essentially a story that we've seen done to death before. It's basically kind of a retread of other action movies. It's hard not to look at the story and think of, Mission Impossible Fallout, Spectre, and especially GoldenEye. And in fact, I think like 90% of the movie's plot feels like a retread of GoldenEye. Like they didn't want to follow the book that this is based off of and just go with the genetic action film plot, which I think was the wrong move on their part here, because this thing didn't do very well at the box office, and it's really not hard to see why by going down that pathway. I honestly was really disappointed in this movie, more because I was looking forward to it than most people did, because I read the book, I love the other movies in the series, so I was going into it with a lot more hope with it. And they had an opportunity to make a really good movie, and they just kind of took the safe way out with it. Nothing about the movie where it really takes chances, and it just kind of felt like it played it safe overall, which is something for a series like this to not do, and it really let me down big time. It's a generic plot with weak twists and turns, and it's an okay movie, but it's a movie you're never going to watch again after the first time you see it. It's a major letdown overall. It's a real misfire. And I was disappointed by it. So there you go. That's The Girl in the Spider's Web. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is Hugh Jackman starring in Jason Reitman's latest film, The Frontrunner.
I'm running for president. The Frontrunner is the true story you thought you knew.
There are stories being written right now. The cameras go everywhere.
But it has a twist.
Should I sacrifice my privacy? We're talking about how you get through today.
You'll never see coming.
I care about the sanctity of this process, whether you do or do not. We can't hide from this.
The Frontrunner.
Don't you remember those wonderful, wonderful days in the 1980s where you can be the front runner for the presidency of the United States, and then someone reveals that you've had an extramarital affair, and then suddenly your presidency is over? Good times. I wish we still had that with certain people in office right now, but sadly that is not the case here. So this is, of course, the story of American Senator Gary Hart, the front-running candidate for the 1988 Democratic presidential nominee, and his subsequent fall from grace when media reports suggested that he was having an extramarital affair. The other cast also includes Vera Farmiga, J.K. Simmons, and Alfred Molina. This is directed by Jason Reitman, and Jason Reitman is a guy that usually does not make a lot of bad movies. Even the movies that he makes are not great, are still films that are at least competently done. Labor Day is probably one of his worst films he's directed, but even then, that film I'll say this, the film is not great overall, but at least it was trying. And this one, you could definitely tell there was some effort being put into it here, but the overall finished product is not really all that great. I mean, you know what it reminded me of, honestly? When Labor Day came out, and then it was immediately followed by Men, Women, and Children. Men, Women, and Children was obviously the much better film. Labor Day wasn't. Case in point with this year, you had a much better movie in Tully that came out earlier in the year, which is one of the year's best movies. And then this one definitely is a movie where it plays it way too safe. It plays it way too by the numbers. And for a film from a great director like Jason Reitman, you can't really do that with a movie like this. It's a film where there is so much that can be told about the story. It is a really engaging story about what happened to this guy back in the 1980s. A guy that seemed like he was destined to become a presidential nominee. And, something really... And then, his personal life gets out there, and it basically ruins any chance of that happening. And it's sad that Hugh Jackman's performance in this is wasted in this. I mean, he's not bad. It's just like, it's not really giving him a whole lot to do. It feels like one of those musical biopics, like we talked about with Bohemian Rhapsody last time. Like, it feels like a movie that secretly was probably made by people involved in this, and they wanted a safe and marketable biopic, and you can't really do that with a story like this about a guy who literally lost his presidential possibilities because he was cheating on his wife. I mean, that's something which is kind of like, it doesn't go into the deep diving issues that would make this an intriguing film overall. And people were smart enough to stay away from it. It bombed at the box office, and it left Jason Reitman out of the loop for a little bit for the longest time, because he wouldn't make another film for a couple of years. But he would follow that up, though, with some of the best movies he's ever made. I mean, Ghostbusters Afterlife is my favorite movie of 2021, and Saturday Night was also one of my favorite movies of that year. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a lull, but it doesn't take away from the great stuff this guy's directed. I mean, this guy is a competent director. This is not one of his better films overall. So, yeah, it's a film that is not great overall. Major disappointment. The front runner, not going to be the front runner for any big awards anytime soon. Maybe the Razzies, but not this. Why did I say that like that? What I wanted to say at the end there was not for the Oscars, but the Razzies certainly would be a front runner. But, there you go. So with that said, that's going to wrap up this episode of Time About the Movies. And next time we meet, this is definitely another one of those weekends where I'm starting to realize that November of 2018 was a very, very lackluster month for movies. I mean, a lot of the big new releases coming out were either underwhelming films, some of the worst movies ever made, some of the worst Oscar winners ever made. Case in point, we're going to talk about next time around. But we have a sequel. We have a sequel to a film that was not very good to begin with, but they still keep making them because Harry Potter is that money, baby, at Warner Brothers. Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. And you think that after the first movie they would expand the story or do something different, but nope, they do not whatsoever. And I'll explain more of that on the next episode. And we'll also take a look at one of the biggest surprises, like a movie like Mark Wahlberg in Instant Family from the director of Daddy's Home and Daddy's Home 2. You wouldn't think this would be any good, and yet it's surprisingly really good. Like, I was actually kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed this film, but we'll touch on that. We'll take a look at Steve McQueen with his first big movie after his Oscar-winning success with 12 Years a Slave. Is that even correct? The one thing I actually got right. I've been wrong a lot the last couple of videos, but I was right that this is Steve McQueen's follow-up to his Oscar-winning Best Picture, 12 Years a Slave. A movie that is definitely very underrated because it was not a big hit, but it definitely deserved to be a hit, and that is Widows. We'll take a look at that, and then we'll take a look at one of the worst Best Picture winners of all time. We haven't had a bad Best Picture winner since The King's Speech, but let me tell you, Green Book definitely is a film that warrants the category of one of the worst Best Pictures ever. I mean, in a year where we're going to talk about the movies that were nominated in the same category here. And that, you know what, let's just go ahead and do it right now, because I want to talk about, we're not going to review the movie, but I just want to remind you the movies that Green Book was up with for the Best Picture. And you're going to see that, yeah, there's no reason why this movie should have won Best Picture. As I'm trying to kill some time here to find it. Come on. Here we go. These were the movies nominated for Best Picture that year. Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. We've already talked about 4 of these movies this year. Actually, yeah, 4 of them, because we haven't gotten to The Favorite, Roma, or Vice yet. But let me tell you something. Like, I would have rather seen Bohemian Rhapsody win Best Picture, even though I hated that movie. It was better than Green Book. I mean, Green Book is just, oh. And I already can tell the hate comments are gonna come in here, and the mobs are coming after me. But I'm sorry, Green Book fucking sucks, and I'm gonna be more than happy to go ahead and dive into how terrible that movie is coming up tomorrow on the show. So grab your popcorn, because that's gonna be fun to watch. But so yeah, we'll take a look at those 4 films: Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, Instant Family, Widows, and Green Book. That'll be tomorrow here on the show. I hope you will join me for that. With all that said, though, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. So with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.